Okay, so hello everybody. So we will continue from where we left off. We were, doing the section on the recollection of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Yeah, which is a really nice meditation to do. It's, you're learning what the meaning of the epitaphs of the Buddha. You're learning, and qualities of the Dharma, and seeing some of the chants that are done daily in some of the Buddhist traditions. So it's a very nice section, and it's a really nice meditation to do. So I finished the explanation of that meditation, and then we'll start on page 72 at the bottom with the reflection, because we ran out of time last week. And then we will continue on talking about the three jewels. Okay, so speaking of the three jewels, let's visualize them in the space in front. And when we do the chanting, we're, communicating with them and reminding ourselves of their qualities and of the attitude, the correct attitude, the beneficial attitude to have when taking refuge, when listening to teachings and so on.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor of the world supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path of freedom, too well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing Nirvana Mandala Niryatayami.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, by the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, by the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, by the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. Let's generate our motivation. So when we look at our own personal lives and ask ourselves, how did I create the causes to have a precious human life with all the freedoms and fortunes that enable us to learn and practice the Buddhist teachings? It requires so many causes and conditions. And how in the world in previous lives did we manage to create all of them? And how did the conditions come together so that all these diverse causes ripened at the same time so that we have this opportunity, this life that we have now? And yet, most of us here did not grow up Buddhist. We may have had some education about ethics, but we were also kids who wanted to get whatever we could get. We were kids with lots of attachment and anger, jealousy, arrogance. And we basically lived under the influence of those mental afflictions until we met the Dharma. But even after we met it, it wasn't and still isn't like, oh, all our misdeeds are finished and those mental afflictions never come up and make messes in our lives. It's not like that. So we have the opportunity to do some virtue, but we also have a lot of imprint and familiarity with non-virtue. But still, at this moment, at this time, we have the very rare opportunity to engage with the Dharma and to hear teachings. So let's remember that we're not doing that simply for our own benefit, but we have long-term aspirations to practice, to learn, to practice until we reach full awakening. And what is going to motivate us and sustain us during that time that it takes is our love and compassion for sentient beings and our confidence and trust in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So take a moment, make that your motivation before we begin. So, we live with the Dharma all around us. We tend to not notice it and to take it for granted. And, did we think before we came here this evening, why am I going to listen to teachings? Or it's just Friday evening at 6 o'clock, we go and listen to teachings. Did we really just do it because that's what we do at Friday and 6? Or did we really think about why we're going and what we want to do while we're attending the teachings? Yeah, and how we want to listen and what we want to take with us after the teachings to contemplate. Yeah. So, we have a very rare and precious opportunity, and sometimes we're just spaced out. We don't even see it. Yeah. Okay. So let's do the reflections on page 70, following the description of the recollections of the three jewels. So first, reflect on the excellent qualities of the Buddha one by one. So you can go over, the section that mentioned them, and you can also refer back to the first chapter where we had that citation from one of my Treya Buddhist texts about the 8 special qualities of the Buddha, the 8 of the Dharma, and the 8 of the Sangha, and go through and meditate on those qualities too. Okay, so, and the way to think about it, is, if we're looking at the verse that we just did, listing the epitaphs of the Buddha, to go through it after having heard the explanation and think the Buddha is the teacher because, and then what is the meaning of being the teacher? Yeah, the Buddha is, you go through each one of the qualities and then try and remember why, what that quality meant. Yeah. Okay, and then the second point in the meditation is reflect on the excellent qualities of the Dharma one by one, thinking, for example, the Dharma is well expounded because, then talk about the meaning of being well expounded and go through the different qualities one by one. Okay, and do this for each of the Dharma's excellent qualities. And then third, reflect on the excellent qualities of the Sangha one by one, thinking that the Sangha practices in the good way because, and why is it said that they practice in the good way? Yeah, and do that for the meaning, for each of the Sangha's excellent qualities. And then four, conclude your reflection by considering your fortune of having encountered the three jewels. Yeah, and think of all the people, some some you can only imagine, who have a spiritual yearning, but do not have the fortune to encounter the Buddha's teachings, to meet the Buddha, encounter the three jewels and learn. And I mean, when I remember before I met the Dharma, the kind of spiritual yearning that I had, and the frustration of not being able to find anything that made any sense. Yeah. And, thinking, well, what would have happened if I had not seen that flyer in Bodhi's Tree bookstore on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles that started the whole thing? What would have happened? And, where would I be now in my life? What would I be thinking? And it's just, it's really terrible to think about. So, and especially, having that spiritual yearning, and you look here and you look there, and nothing makes any sense. Yeah, and people are telling you, don't ask so many questions, just shut up and believe. And it's like, no, that's not going to work for me. Okay. So it makes us appreciate more. Okay, so now we're on the section called the distinguishing features of the three jewels. So in this, it talks about different ways in which the three jewels are different regarding specific qualities and specific abilities. Okay, so the three jewels harmoniously direct us towards the same spiritual aims. Yeah, I think it's funny, I put the word harmoniously in there, as if the three jewels would have opposite ways of, they would have different aims, and no, they're all taking us in the same direction. Okay. So it goes towards the same spiritual aims, yet each jewel has its own distinguishing features and a distinct role that it plays in guiding us. Understanding these expands the meaning of taking refuge in them, okay, which you'll see. So Asanga explains 6 distinguishing features in his Compendium of Determinations. Okay, so it's going to explain that. So someone may ask, each of the three jewels has so many magnificent qualities. Is it sufficient to take refuge in only one of them? Like 3 is like too much, I just want one object to refuge, and I just want to, rely on that. So no, that doesn't work. Yeah, it limits us. So taking refuge in all 3 is important because we relate to each jewel differently, owing to their differences. Okay, and here's the ways, the categories that we're going to compare them and see how they're different. Okay, so we can see their differences in 1, their defining characteristics, 2, their awakening influence or awakening activities, 3, their distinct qualities. 4, the way that we appreciate them. 5, our practice in relationship to them. And 6, our creation of merit in relationship to each of them. Okay, so now we're going to go through each one of those categories and talk about how each jewel fulfills that. Okay? So the first one is their defining characteristics. Okay, so in their defining characteristics, the Buddhas are those who have abandoned all defects and have developed all good qualities limitlessly. Okay, they are omniscient and are able to know both ultimate and conventional truths simultaneously. So that's a quality only of the Buddhas. Yeah. Here's what the defining characteristic of the Dharma jewel. It consists of true paths and true cessations, which, when actualized in our own mind, are the real protection from dukkha. Yeah, dukkha meaning unsatisfactory experiences. So this is really important, you know, and this is explaining why the Dharma is said to be the actual refuge, because when we actualize it in our own mental continuum, then we are free of samsara and then free also of the two obscurations. Okay, then the Buddha appeared in our world to teach us how to actualize the Dharma, and in doing so, he fulfilled our wishes. Okay, so we need the Buddha to explain the Dharma. We need the Dharma to be explained by the Buddha. Yeah? The Sangha jewel consists of Aryas who have realized the Dharma and are qualified to guide us so that we can do the same. So remember, that's the Sangha jewel. Yeah, the representation of that is the monastic community, which we'll get into. Okay, so the Aryas demonstrate the correct practice and prove the validity and usefulness of the Buddhist teachings because they have heard them, reflected on them, meditated on them, or actualized them. So by looking at these people who have followed the path that we're learning, we can see where we're going, and we can also see that the teachings work when they're practiced, faithfully and correctly. Yeah. So that's kind of nice to know, isn't it? When the teachings weren't made up like the day before yesterday and marketed yesterday, special discount for you to learn the quick, easy, but not cheap path to awakening. Yeah. And just follow this guru, bow down, don't ask any questions, give him all your money, and you'll be okay. It sounds foolish, but this sometimes happens. Yeah. Okay. Not in the Buddhist tradition, but in the spiritual supermarket. Okay. Then the second quality is their awakening influence. So in that respect, here's how the three are different. The Buddha teaches us the transmitted Dharma in the most effective and manner and instructs us what to practice and abandon on the path. So the transmitted Dharma, the oral teachings, that sometimes are in written form, that describe, the Buddhist worldview, the practice, and so on. Okay, so that's the Buddha's awakening influence. The Dharma jewel eliminates dukkha and it causes the afflictions. And the Sangha jewel gives us encouragement, inspiration, and assistance in practicing. Their joy in study and practice invigorates us, and their presence reassures us that we are not alone on the path. Yeah, so imagine maybe you meet the the Buddha's teachings, you find a book, there's nothing else, there's nobody else around who practices. Yeah, you read the book, you go, wow, this is incredible, but then how do you practice? There's nobody to practice with, there's nobody to guide you, to give you the tips on how to do it. You're stuck just with trying to figure it out with a book. And that's how I think some of you started, didn't you? Yeah, reading books. And books are great, but, without having access to people who actually practice this and can, give us tips and encourage us and say, yeah, what you're going through is normal, don't worry about it, just keep going, and, that kind of thing, that's so important for us. Okay, then the next thing that we are going to see their differences about is we recollect the distinct qualities of each of the three jewels. Okay, so the Buddha's distinct qualities are that he's free from ignorance, anger, and attachment. Yeah, the Buddhas have supreme wisdom and compassion and know all phenomena as clearly as we see a button in our palm. Wow, so you don't need to read the newspaper, you don't need to study the science book, you can pass your algebra test, don't worry. Now, this isn't why we're doing it, but, the kind of ability that is a distinct quality of the Buddha. So when practiced correctly, the Dharma brings good results in the beginning, middle, and end, and the Sangha is on the right path. So being impartial, Sangha members are true friends and objects of respect. We can count on their companionship, and support on the path. Okay, so think of, what happens when you get stuck in your mind or something comes up in your meditation and you're going around and around in circles, or you all of a sudden get kind of discouraged and you're belittling yourself and you're kind of, you're stuck in a hole. Then what do? It's really nice to have people that we can talk to about this, who have been through the same things and can say, well, everybody goes through this. Don't worry about it. Do this, do that. I remember when I was first learning Buddhism in Kopan in Nepal, and like probably with all of you at the beginning, it was so excited and I loved practicing, and I just felt each meditation I was really, getting somewhere. And then I hit something and I just felt like, oh, this is so dry. I see a bunch of nodding heads. I've done this practice before. I've read this prayer before. Yeah. And I didn't know, how do I make it alive again? And I remember there was a nun who I mentioned that to, and she said, oh, when you get stuck like that, then do the practices of purification and to create merit. And then she taught me the mandala offering. And so I started doing that, and doing more prostrations and so on. And my practice, kind of that feeling of deadness, vanished, and I could continue. But you do go through different times in your practice where it feels like, I'm just saying words. And I want to have some juice, but I'm just, saying words. So purification and creation of merit is really good at that time. Okay, then the next thing is the, let's see. Okay, how we show our, yeah.
Just before we go further, I wanted to go back to the last one, and would you please explain this word transmitted dharma? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, that's what they often call the scriptural dharma.
I wasn't sure if they
the
were
actual
synonymous.
teachings that are transmitted from teacher to student, from one generation to the next generation.
Thank you.
Yeah, scriptural dharma, I don't like that term because it makes you think it has to be books, but it's not. Yeah. Okay, then how we show our appreciation, respect, and gratitude for each of the three jewels in a particular way by making offerings, being of service, respecting the Buddhas. That's how we show appreciation to the Buddhas, putting the Dharma into practice, how we show appreciation for the Dharma, so that it can transform our minds, and then practicing together with the Sangha and joining in their efforts to make the Dharma a healing force in the world. So again, living with other people, other practitioners, it gives you like a support and a foundation that you don't really have otherwise. Like the Dharma being a healing force in the world. What? As one person, I'm going to be able to pull that off? But, you have a whole contingent of people and you work together, and like we do, organize courses and people going out and teaching and so on, then, that begins to happen. Yeah. And you can do, I think even as one individual, you can do more when you're working together with people, let alone everybody working together can definitely do more. Yeah. And then plus, when you're doing this together with other people, you rejoice in their merit. And they say that rejoicing in our own and other people's merit is the, how did they phrase it? The simpleton's way of accumulating merit. Yeah. So, you read of or hear of people's virtuous activities and you think, oh, that's so hard. They're keeping that precept. That's so difficult. I can't do that. And then you get all down on yourself. Oh, yeah, I did that one time. I was comparing myself to Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He had sent me to Singapore and I was working at the center in Singapore. And, I get tired at night and I want to go to bed. And Rinpoche, had come to teach. And of course, everything goes on into all hours of the night or the next morning. And I was saying, oh, if I only had more compassion, I would really, be able to do so much more. I just don't have any compassion. I'm so lazy. Of course, you compare yourself to somebody like him. That's how you come out. Yeah. But then if there's other people, if you then look at his merit, you see what he's doing and you rejoice, then they say if somebody is more advanced than you, you accumulate more merit by rejoicing in their virtuous deed than they accumulate by doing it. If the person is at the same level as you, and you rejoice at their virtue, you accumulate the same amount of merit. And if you are more advanced than they are and you rejoice, then you accumulate more merit than they do. Yeah. So, so it's the easy person's way. You don't even have to do the virtue yourself. You just have to not be jealous and not compete with them and just let your mind be happy that somebody else is doing something virtuous, because it really is wonderful, isn't it, when somebody does something kind or somebody does something ethical that's hard to do. Yeah, so rejoice at it. Yeah, I try not to compare myself to him anymore. Yeah. This teacher is my first teacher, he and Lama Yeshe. And Rinpoche, basically, he sleeps, well, he doesn't actually lie down to sleep. Nobody's ever seen him lie down to sleep. But he'll sit in meditation position, and he will, meditate most of the night, if he's not, unless he's talking to students or teaching or who knows what he's doing in the middle of the night. And sometimes his head will drop, and he'll, who knows what he's doing, drawing the winds inside and doing some kind of yogic practice. But, and then he'll do that, and then he'll pop up, and it's 4:00 in the morning, and start the morning practices and keep going. And I say, oh, if I only had more compassion, I could do like that. But I want to go to bed. I'm tired. Okay, so then that was in terms of how we show our appreciation and respect. So now in terms of our practice, the Buddhas are the role models we emulate. Yeah, and I especially like Shakyamuni Buddha's life story, because in so many ways we can update it and relate it to our lives. Yeah, and I like that. So the Buddhas are the role models we emulate. We prostrate, make offerings, and serve and respect them to create the merit, enabling us to attain their spiritual qualities. We familiarize ourselves with the Dharma. And this is how we practice with the Dharma, familiarizing ourselves with the Dharma, practicing and meditating on it, and integrating it with our body, speech, and mind. Then we practice harmoniously together with the Sangha, sharing teachings and material goods with them, and following their good example. Okay, so if you've ever lived on your own as a monastic, you see the value of practicing together with the Sangha. Yeah, when you live alone in your own flat, you are alone. When I first came back, and I was living in Seattle and teaching at the Dharma Friendship Foundation, and when I had been in India, living with the Sangha, and everybody who's there in the group of people I was with, everybody was there because of the Dharma. We all had the same teacher. We all loved the Dharma. We all had visa problems together. We all had to travel across India in the pre-monsoon heat together, So you have that kind of support, sharing teachings and material goods and so on. When I came back and I was working as they had asked me to be the resident teacher at DFF. Then I was living in my own flat, and I still had the same feeling that I had living in India, where everybody is there because of the Dharma, and that's what you do your whole life. So I came back, I'm trying to live like that, and I'm working with lay people who have jobs and families and social lives and things like that, and trying to run a center. And this is my priority, and I thought everybody should cherish the Dharma as much as I do and be available for organizing things and stuff. because that's why we're here, isn't it? And so you call somebody, but they had family problems, they're at work, they're distracted. It's totally different. And it was a real strange thing for me. I had to get used to being with people whose main thing in life wasn't the Dharma, and yet, try and keep my own practice strong. It's not easy. Okay, and then in terms of how we create and increase merit, in terms of the three jewels, we do that in a distinct manner. So we offer, prostrate, and serve the Buddha. Okay, we cultivate the Dharma in our mind stream, and we engage in virtuous actions together with the Sangha of 4 or more fully ordained monastics who represent the Sangha jewel. And we also make offerings, pay respect, and offer service to them. Yeah. And so again, this is, when there's a community that's living together, like you saw this last weekend, all these people come here because it's a place they can come and learn the Dharma, practice together with other people, ask questions, get support. Yeah, so it makes a difference when there's a Sangha community there. Yeah, when you live on your own, then you have to come up with the energy and everything yourself. You know that, yeah. Okay, so then the reflection goes with that section. So the first point is why is each of the six distinguishing features important in your refuge practice? Yeah, so think of how you relate in all these different ways to the three jewels, and how does that help your practice? What does that do for you? And then for each of those 6 ways, make examples of how you have related to or could relate to each of the three jewels. Okay, so because always making examples from your own life, or making examples from what you see other people do gives us ideas and inspiration. Okay, we're now moving into a new section. This one's called Causal and Resultant Refuge. So as the Buddhist followers, we take refuge in the causal three jewels that guide us to awakening, and the resultant three jewels that we will become upon fulfilling our spiritual aspiration. So the causal three jewels are the three jewels that already exist. The resultant three jewels are the ones that we're going to actualize. So the Sublime Continuum, one of Maitreya's books with commentary by his disciple Asanga, the Sublime Continuum presents the resultant three jewels by linking them to the spiritual interests and dispositions of the 3 types of practitioners. That is, according to their disposition, disciples will have different resultant refuges that are their chief focus. Okay, so what they're aiming for. And so when we talk of the 3 vehicles, the Hira or Shravaka vehicle, solitary realizer, Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, and then the Mahayana or Bodhisattva vehicle, okay? So before entering a path, some followers are attracted to bodhicitta and have great admiration for the Buddha's qualities. They enter the Mahayana path and yearn to attain the qualities of a fully awakened Buddha. As a result, by learning and practicing the Mahayana path, they attain Buddhahood. So thus, the Buddha jewel is said to be their main object of refuge. Okay, So in terms of the causal refuge, no, the resultant refuge, okay? Then other disciples are attracted to the explanation of dependent origination and enter the solitary realizer vehicle, focusing their efforts on realizing the forward and reverse orders of the afflictive and purified sides of the 12 links of dependent origination. They take the Dharma jewel as their principal refuge object. So the afflictive and purified sides of the 12 links of dependent origination, we already covered. They were in the previous book, previous volume. Okay, so by meditating on dependent origination, they extinguish the causes of cyclic existence and become solitary realizer arhats. Okay. Then another group of disciples, they are attracted to the four truths of the Aryas, or the Four Noble Truths. They're entering the Shravaka vehicle. They learn and meditate on the four truths and take the Sangha as their resultant refuge. So relying on the instructions of a Sangha member, this is how they take the Sangha as their resultant causal refuge. Relying on the instructions of a Sangha member, they become an arhat, a Shravaka arhat. In short, the resultant refuge is specific to each individual according to his or her disposition, the path that appeals to them, and their principal spiritual goal. Yeah. So as you're around Buddhist circles, you really see that people have really different interests, different dispositions. People like to practice in different ways. Some people just really like to hear teachings more, and other people want to do more meditation, and some people want to do social service, and so people have different interests. Some people are interested in bodhicitta and the prasangika view of emptiness, and some people aren't. So we can see that according to people's interests and dispositions, then what they want to study, what they want to practice, who they follow, and so on, is going to differ. And so this, again, we keep coming back to it, that it's not one size fits all. And to have a big mind that sees that, people are different. And that's fine, and everybody has to practice in a way that feels comfortable to them. So for example, some people like doing analytical meditation, and they love just thinking about the teachings, making examples of them, seeing how points, meet together. Other people, they want to do ritual things. They love reciting mantras and prayers, and when something comes out, please recite so many million of mantras for a specific teacher's long life. These people stop everything and they do that, and they feel very fulfilled that way. And then there's other people who are always busy, arranging things, organizing things, making Dharma events happen. And so, so people are different. And I have a feeling, too, that from one life to the next, what we emphasize in our practice can be different. And, so the mind that, when you're studying says, I should be meditating or doing social service. When you're meditating, thinks, I should be studying or doing social service. When you're doing social service, I should be, meditating and learning. So, if you have a big view, then you see it. it's going to take a while to do accumulate all the causes for Buddhahood. So some lives, according to your tendency, get devoted to one thing, and another life is more devoted to another thing, and we don't have to compare ourselves with other people because we don't know what we and they have done in previous lives and kind of where we're going to go in the future. So that, this whole thing of comparing just really doesn't make much sense. Yeah, and similarly, the tendency we have, we want to do everything, don't we? Yeah, we want to learn everything, we want to study everything, we want to do every practice, we want to, everything, yeah. Yeah, some of you are looking a little bit guilty here. Guilty, so much desire to do virtue. No, it's, we want to do everything, and we can't. We're limited beings right now, so we kind of, have to do some things and build up. Yeah. When I was going back to India, I had been in the West for a while. I was going back to India, and I wrote to Geshe Sonam Rinchen and his translator, Ruth Sonam, and I said, I'm so excited to be going back to India, and I want to learn Madhyamika and I want to learn Nundokan, and I want to learn Uttara Tantra, and and in my mind I was just saying everything I wanted to learn. I wasn't I said, I hope Gen Rinpoche can teach me all of this, but I was thinking, it's going to happen over a period of time. So Ruth, the translator, writes back and says, oh, that's very nice, but we can't do all of that at the same time. Like, chill out, kid. And but then we did do one of the texts that I had mentioned, but when I thought about it later, I wasn't expecting to learn it all at the same time, but actually that would have been really nice if I could. So, okay. I also want to clarify the term dependent origination, how I'm using it, okay? Because you'll notice sometimes there's dependent origination and sometimes there's dependent arising. Actually, very often the Tibetan term is the same for both. The reason I translate these two different terms is when we're different. The reason I translate this one term in different ways is according to different contexts, because when we're talking about dependent origination, okay, that we're talking about how we get born into samsara and how we are freed from samsara. So, the origination of our life, the origination of how samsara operates, okay? So that's how I use the term dependent origination. And dependent arising refers, the way I'm using it, to things depending on causes and conditions, depending on parts, depending on being conceived and designated. Okay, so actually dependent origination, the 12 links, dependent origination, that is one type of dependent arising, okay? But I translate that term in two different ways so that, we can get some idea of the difference in how they're being used. Okay. So let's continue with the causal and resultant objects of refuge. So although their resultant objects of refuge may differ, all three groups turn to the external Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as their causal refuge. Okay, so what somebody in these three different disciples are emphasizing, yeah, that's their main thing of interest, but they all turn to the Buddha to learn. Yeah, and they all turn to the Buddha as an example of how to practice. So in this context, the Buddha refuge is our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma refuge is the true paths and true cessations in the mental continuums of Aryas. And the Sangha refuge is the Aryas of all three vehicles. Okay. So all Buddhists, no matter which vehicle or Buddhist tradition they follow, take refuge in the causal three jewels. Yeah. So we shouldn't think, these people say they're Buddhists, but they have really weird objects of refuge. Actually, if they're practicing the Dharma, they should, we all have the same objects of refuge, the causal objects, the ones that have already reached the goal. Yeah. We create merit and purify negativities in relation to the causal three jewels by bowing, making offerings, revealing our misdeeds, rejoicing in our own and others' virtues, and the other elements of the seven limb prayer. By relying on the causal three objects of refuge, we receive teachings and guidance, practice the three higher trainings, generate love and compassion, realize the correct view of reality, and attain the awakening of the vehicle that we enter. So it's important to be aware that even though each of these three vehicles has a specific thing that they emphasize, everybody actually has to practice so much in common. Yeah. So it isn't that the people following the Mahayana teachings don't meditate on dependent origination and don't meditate on the four truths, and it isn't that the people who meditate on the four truths and follow the Sravaka vehicle, it isn't that they don't develop love and compassion. They do develop them, maybe not bodhicitta, but definitely love, and compassion to some extent. Okay. We can also speak of the resultant three jewels in terms of the three jewels we will become in the future. From this perspective, those of us who aspire for full awakening have as our resultant refuge the Buddha jewel that we will become in the future. Okay, the true paths and true cessations that will exist in our mind stream at that time, and the Arya Buddhas we will become. Okay, so that's why, at least in the Tantra practice, when we imagine ourselves in the form of one of the deities, that's what we're practicing. We're imagining being our resultant three jewels. Okay. At this time, let's see. At this time, the natural, when we become, okay. Yeah, so we're thinking of the Buddha jewel that will become in the future, the true paths and true cessations that will actualize at that time, and the and that we will become Arya we will become Arya Buddhas. So we imagine that, yeah, and at this time, the natural Buddha nature, the emptiness of our mind, will become the nature, truth body of a Buddha. The transforming Buddha nature will become the wisdom, truth body of a Buddha. And simultaneously with attaining the truth body, we will attain a Buddha's enjoyment and emanation bodies, becoming the Buddha jewel ourselves. Okay. So these resultant three jewels are our genuine protection from the dukkha of samsara. The true cessations and true paths in our mind stream when we become Aryas are the actual refuge that will protect us. This is what I was saying earlier. Meditating on impermanence, the defects of samsara, love, compassion, bodhicitta, the correct view, and so on, inches us forward on the path to become our own resultant three jewels. Even though our resultant three jewels do not exist now, they will exist in the future. Yeah. Why? Because we have that potential to become Buddhas. Yeah. So our future Buddhahood exists. Does it exist now? No. Okay. But if we say our future Buddhahood does not exist, then there would be no use to practice the path. Yeah, so when we say exist, we're just talking in general as it is an existent phenomena. Okay? Because we have the potential to actualize the three jewels, we can take refuge in the resultant three jewels now. Yeah, so when we're doing the visualizations, like even at the beginning of teachings, or when we're doing meditation practice, there's so many different ways we can think when we visualize the Buddha in the space in front of us. We can think of it as Shakyamuni Buddha. We can think of that Buddha as just the physical manifestation of all of these qualities that we've been learning about. We can think of the Buddha as the Buddha that we will become in the future. So there's different ways of relating to the Buddha when we do our practice and meditate. Yeah. Okay, then the reflection for this section. 1, what is your causal refuge and what is your resultant refuge? So you all better say the Buddha. Yeah, and why? What? You're attracted to bodhicitta, yeah. Yeah. And you don't say, oh, it's just too hard. I can't do it. It's impossible. Yeah. Okay, then how do those three jewels differ? And in what ways are they the same? And then the third point to reflect on, how does the causal refuge help you to actualize the resultant refuge? So we finished another chapter. Imagine that. How long has it taken us to do 2 chapters? What? 22? 20 teachings. Okay. So 10 a chapter, huh? Okay, so now chapter 3, called A Heartfelt Connection to the Three Jewels. So this is going to get more into some of some material you may be more familiar with. In the preceding chapters, we identified the three jewels and learned their qualities. Reflecting on these moves the heart. First, we are assured that we are not alone on our spiritual journey, that millions of people have followed this path before us and attained the results of a tried and true path, so we can trust their guidance. Yeah, that's important. Second, we have a vision of the spiritual journey we will take and the destination we will arrive at as a result of correct practice. We are not inherently limited beings, But like the Buddha, who was once a sentient being, just like us, and later became an awakened one, we too can follow that path and attain that result. This knowledge transforms our attitude about life into one with great purpose and a long-term perspective that brings, instead of reliance, it should say resilience. Okay, will you note that? Yeah. So this knowledge transforms our attitude about life into one with great purpose and a long-term perspective that brings resilience in the face of life's vacillations. Yeah, we have to be resilient. Yeah, I mean, people who aren't resilient when difficulties hit, which they always do, people they're lost. They don't know what to do. They get depressed, and yeah. So being resilient, and I think, this long-term outlook is what gives us resilience. We can't just have this, American idea that everything is constantly getting better and better and better and better. Yeah. Because if we expect everything to always be like that, when reality hits and we can't control everything, then we fall apart and we give up and say, oh, it's all useless, and then, you self-medicate. Yeah, drugs, alcohol, computer addiction, sci-fi movie addiction, whatever it is. Yeah, so this kind of resilience that comes from having a very firm purpose and goal in our lives and having a long-term perspective in accomplishing it. Okay, now formally taking refuge. So this is, a particular section that will be very good for all the people who requested to take refuge to read. Okay, before taking refuge, it is important to know the qualities of the three jewels so that we are clear on whom and what we are entrusting our spiritual guidance to and whose instructions we plan to follow on the path. And this is so important to be clear, about this. Otherwise, boy, it's just mass confusion in the mind. At a certain point in our spiritual journey, we may deeply feel that the Buddhist path resonates within us and we want to follow it. We can then formally take refuge in the three jewels during a ceremony. We're going to get into how we do this. What's the ceremony like? Yeah. So, people sometimes say, well, why do we need a ceremony to officially become a Buddhist and to take refuge? You don't really need it. Yeah. It's because your refuge is an internal thing, that exists in here, in your own heart. Yeah. And the purpose of doing the ceremony is, you're doing it in a public way, and so you're making a commitment that other people know about. You're also doing it in the presence of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, visualizing them and making a certain determination and then promises and so on and so forth. So the ceremony really helps us get clear, and make a statement also in a public way. Because other times we just kind of, actually, I really like Sufi dancing, maybe I should do that, all these Buddhists, they just do Namo Amita. I want to do Sufi dancing, not Buddha bear dancing. We'll introduce you to Buddha bear. So, you know, yeah, we need to be clear. Okay, so traditionally, the demarcation of becoming a Buddhist has been taking refuge. In other words, one of the benefits of taking refuge is becoming a Buddhist, yeah, and saying that you are now a Buddhist. It's the same way when we took monastic precepts, that's how we then can say we're monastic. We did get one person who was applying for EML who said he was a lay monastic. There's no such thing as a lay monastic. Yeah. So, okay, so traditionally the demarcation of becoming a Buddhist has been taking refuge. Some people hesitate to participate in a formal ceremony in which they repeat the refuge formula after a spiritual master. Why do people hesitate? Well, what am I promising? Can I really do it? Yeah, I thought about it. I want to do it, but I don't want to say that out loud because what happens if I can't? What happens if I mess up? And why do I have to bow in front of somebody else, to take refuge? So, some people have that kind of hesitation. I see some nodding heads, Yeah, so that's okay. That's why I said, our real refuge is in our heart. Okay, other people want to take refuge formally, yeah, but the external conditions are not present. So you have some people who don't want to take it when they have the conditions, and other people who want to take it but don't have the conditions. Okay. So participating in a ceremony is not necessary. What is important is that we have reflected on the qualities of the three jewels, the reasons for taking refuge in them, and the meaning of doing so. In other words, we should know what we're doing. Yeah? Having done that, entrusting ourselves from our hearts to the three jewels for spiritual guidance, because we recognize them as reliable objects of refuge, is the meaning of taking refuge. Okay, so it starts here, and we're entrusting our spiritual guidance to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha jewels. Okay, so looking back on it, when you first took refuge and what you understand now, what do you think about that first time you took refuge?
I didn't know much. I didn't understand very well what were the three jewels. I was kind of a heartfelt something that I wanted to do. And I still remember when I asked one of the monastic at Kopan Monastery, I didn't know that you were asking to take refuge. I thought that was pronounced taking refugee. So I want to take a refugee. I want to take a refugee. My English was terrible at the time, and the guy was thinking I wanted to adopt someone, or I don't know, take a refugee from another country. He couldn't understand what I was meaning. It was very funny. But anyway, and I took the precepts and I got drunk a couple of weeks later. One of my friends was leaving the country, so I didn't keep my precepts very well, my vows, but yeah. So that grew over time by studying and learning the qualities of the three jewels, and
Yeah.
But at first I was kind of a little bit foolish.
Yeah. Can all of you see the difference between where you are now and when you first took refuge? Yeah, you changed, yeah. And I look back and it's like, it's almost something to laugh at, but at the same time, to be very glad it happened. because it got me going, even though I didn't understand things very well. Yeah. Well, the first time, Lama Yeshe was giving refuge and precepts, and I thought, the Course had really influenced me, and I thought, I really need to get my ethical conduct in order. But only certain parts of my ethical conduct, certain. So I kind of had my own version of the 5 precepts. And and when I was taking them, this was how I meant each one, and I didn't promise anything I couldn't do, and I didn't take all the branches of it, because I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do everything, okay, I won't do this unless there's a situation where, it seems like it would be advantageous to do that, or it would make me feel good, or I would be in a certain situation, social situation where I could do that. So, writing my own precepts. Yeah. And then afterwards, when I went to Kopan, a couple of months after that, then after that course, I took them again, and much more seriously. I don't know. Okay, so here's coming back to His Holiness. Some people ask me if believing in rebirth is necessary to take refuge and become a Buddhist. They have learned some of the Buddhist teachings on developing, let's say, fortitude, love, and compassion, for example, and they find those teachings meaningful. They have faith in the Buddha to that extent, because the Buddha taught that, and they've benefited from it, and they want to take refuge. However, they are unclear regarding the existence of rebirth, karma, and other realms, and they do not find those teachings useful for their spiritual practice at the present time. That's the key words. You can resonate with some aspects of the Buddha Dharma now, but maybe there's other ones that, you're not convinced of yet, and you really have to take some time and think about them and learn more and investigate. Okay, so in such a case, because these people have some faith and a good attitude towards the Dharma and a wish to strengthen these, I allow them to attend a refuge ceremony and consider themselves Buddhist if they wish. Okay, so this is His Holiness. Okay, listen to the next paragraph. However, some people do not agree with this. Oh, imagine that. People have different opinions. Wow. Yeah. So these people say that the scriptures clearly delineate the causes for taking refuge in the 3 jewels. So the person must have a sense of danger of taking an unfortunate rebirth or of remaining in samsara. They need faith and confidence in the ability of the 3 jewels to guide them from the danger of samsara. And in the case of Mahayana practitioners, they need compassion and a wish that others be free from the danger of samsara. Okay, so to have these 3, a person must accept rebirth, karma, other realms of existence, and emptiness. Otherwise, taking refuge in the 3 jewels would not be of interest to them. Yeah. So this whole thing that we hear about now of secular Buddhism, which really I don't consider Buddhism, but they've adopted certain things from Buddhism. Yeah. So, for those people who are secular Buddhists, there's certain things, like love and compassion and certain aspects of ethical conduct and so on, that makes sense. And from His Holiness's perspective, that's fine if they want to take refuge. Yeah, but other people say, oh, but the texts all say that, you have to, your motivation has to be a wish to be free of samsara. And samsara is taking rebirth under the influence of afflictions and karma. So if you don't believe in rebirth and you don't believe in karma, yeah, then you're not going to have the proper motivation for doing it. Yeah. And in addition, then you need to have faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And some people, they like some of the teachings that say on love and compassion, but, they're not so keen on joining another religion. Yeah, my generation of people is like, and still a lot of people now too, it's like organized religion, because they haven't been impressed with organized religion in the religion they grew up in. And so they don't want to do, like formally taking refuge in Buddhism and becoming a Buddhist, because what happens if they find out that, it has the same problems as the religion you grew up in, okay? So those, people are, from one viewpoint, His Holiness would say, yes, it's fine, you take refuge. Then other people would say, no, better wait, okay? Now it's interesting, why would His Holiness have one standard and some of the other lamas have another standard? Okay, if you look at the Dalai Lama's position and the effect he has on other people, he represents not just Tibetan Buddhism, but in some people's minds, all of Buddhism. Yeah, and his role is to really open the door. He teaches broadly all over the place to everybody. Yeah, and his role is to really draw people in and to show them that, and this is one thing he's really interested in, is that you can be a Buddhist and a scientist at the same time, that Buddhism and science, don't have to clash. Yeah, and so that's his role, to do that kind of contact with other Buddhist traditions, with other disciplines, with a whole variety of people. When you go to his public teachings, there's so many people who come, and he wants to give them tools to work with their minds, no matter what their spiritual tradition is. Yeah. And so when those people say, they hear about refuge and they say, I want to take refuge, because that's His Holiness's role and that's what he does, he says yes. Yeah. But then other lamas whose role is more not to bring so many vast number of people in, but to really lead people who are serious, then those people are going to say, no, these are the standards, and this is what I want people who take refuge to have, to hold. Okay, so you can't say one is right and one is wrong. You can say that, different teachers do different things according to the students or the people who attend their talks. They do different things. Okay, so I remember one time, this was at the Yucca Valley retreat way back in the 70s, and there was one young man who said to Lama Zopa, and he said, I'm Jewish, but can I be Buddhist too? I like some of the things Buddhism teaches, but I'm Jewish. And Rinpoche, without skipping a beat, said, I'm a Jewish Buddhist. Yeah. And this guy just totally relaxed, you know? Yeah. So, huh? Did I what?
When you give refuge, you have people prepare, but that's not something you check or is it?
I don't check, no, but it usually, you know, it's at the end of a course. So people, you know, have some background. And usually it's not the first course people take, you know, people come for a while and they've been practicing and so on. Yeah. No, I don't cross-examine them. Do you believe in rebirth? Yeah. Do you believe that you could be reborn as a gopher? You know, check the box here, you know, if you believe. Check that box if you don't believe. No, I'm not going to do that. Yes, and what do you believe? Yeah. Can you be reborn as a mosquito?
Venerable, in here it says that have to take refuge with a spiritual master.
Yeah.
But who is qualified to give refuge?
To give refuge.
Yeah.
Okay. You must have taken refuge yourself. And similarly, to give precepts, you must hold those precepts. Okay. That's why if somebody's giving the 8 Mahayana precept, they have to get up even earlier in the morning and take them themselves on that day in order to give them to other people on the same day. Okay. So you have to have those things yourself in order to give them to other people. Yeah.
Because the Chinese translation, it says has to be acharya.
Yes. Acharya means an instructor. Yeah. So it usually refers to somebody who has been teaching the Dharma and is kind of known, you know, at least to some people as a teacher. Yeah. You know, now how do you get from where you are right now to be in the position to give refuge? I mean, for me, I had no intention of ever doing this. And then what happened? Yeah. There was some retreat and some people asked me to take refuge. And of course I say, it's better if you take refuge with my teacher, do the ceremony with my teacher. You always, always, always refer to your teacher, you know. And that person said, but I want to take refuge with you. I was like, yeah. And they said, you know, I don't speak Tibetan. I want to do it in English. So it was kind of a difficult thing for me. So I went and I asked my teacher, what do I do? You know, and he said, oh, you can give refuge. Yeah, so that's how I started doing it. Yeah, those kinds of things, it's always better to ask. And, you know, if you're requested, you know, check with your teacher, because, yeah, sometimes it's better that the teacher does it in that kind of situation. Yeah, sometimes it's not. Okay. Oh, so let's pause here, and if you have comments or questions.
Question from online. Someone asks, is it advisable to lean into our tendencies, for example, for study versus rituals, or to try and balance out what we are not so inclined towards, or to just nurture and enjoy our tendency in this lifetime?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, so when you were talking about how we have different interests and people practice in different ways, they're asking, should we lean into our interests and just nourish that, or should we try and balance ourselves out with what we're not so interested in?
Both. Yeah, why does it have to be either or? Yeah, if you're interested in something, lean into that, learn that, follow it up. But that doesn't mean you have to exclude everything else. Yeah, you can still, be more open and learn about the other aspects of practice. Okay, are there other questions online? Okay, yeah.
I thought everyone had the same resultant refuge. Everyone, one final vehicle.
Yeah, at the end, we say everybody will become a Buddha. Yeah, we'll have that same result in refuge. But right now, some people, according to their tendency now, they want to become like a Shravaka Arhat or a solitary realizer Arhat.
Just a comment, and then listening to Venerable Kunchok's story, reflecting on the instance of taking refuge at the very beginning, my first thought was, oh, that shows clearly this was nothing but karma, right? Because you know so little, and the enthusiasm is so great still, that for me really illustrates that karma is majorly at work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think many of us, were surprised at how, easily or quickly we took to the Dharma, or at least some aspects of the Dharma. Yeah, not all of it, but some aspects definitely. Yeah. And what's the cause? Well, as your parents would probably like, not all of your parents, but many of your parents would probably like my parents, who reminded me this is not genetic. There are no Buddhists in your genetic lineage. Yeah. And I knew it was, so that's cancel out nature. And I knew it also wasn't nurture because there was nothing Buddhist in my upbringing. Yeah, I think very similar for most of you. And so, the only possible explanation besides insanity, which my mother, thought maybe that was it, was, karma, something, aptitude from previous life. Mm-hmm.
And how important do you think languaging and articulating motivation therefore is? If many of us feel that we just followed a knowingness into Buddhism, and maybe I at least still just can't articulate something up there, quite high, that is driving me. Like for someone like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, how much do you think language failed him? He clearly knew so much, staying up all night, doing all these things. He was following something, and he had to use language to communicate. But how much does he really only think it's about leaving samsara? Is that definite? Is there something missing?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I quite understand what your question.
Do you think everything someone like him saw or like lived for, do you think he was able to put it into language?
Oh, what he understands. I think probably some of it not, because it's just not even necessary. But certainly when he teaches, he puts what he feels and thinks into language. Yeah.
And so for a practitioner like me, I should try to articulate what it is that's quite mysterious and unwordable that's driving me in language, you think?
I don't know. I mean, probably with time doing that won't seem so, you'll find words to explain it, and you'll see that even though words sound like they make things concrete, that doesn't mean you have to view them in a very concrete way. Yeah, that words are just a tool to communicate. Does that make some sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
I just want to, this maybe reflect on how really this topic of refuge is so profound. It's just been wonderful to learn at so many levels. I mean, because Singapore has that Buddhist culture, it made me think back on when I took refuge. It really felt so kind of simple and sweet. There's one historical Buddha, this is what he taught, and the ordained people are the Sangha. It's like, oh, yay! That's kind of how I felt. It's like, oh my goodness. Once we got into like bodies of the Buddha, like it's just beyond anything I could have imagined. And that it's so profound philosophically. But, back then I wouldn't have clued into that at all. So it's just great to have the time to study and learn.
Yeah. See, what happens is you begin to see that taking refuge is not an on and off light switch. It's a light, one of the light switches that you can turn, and you can dial it up, because as you learn more, as you practice more, as you look inside more and understanding how the teachings apply, then your feeling about taking refuge and what it means to you changes. Yeah, at the beginning, right. Sounds so simple, so easy. But then when you really learn, it's like, oh, wow, But if you had learned all that at the beginning, it would have been too much. Yeah.
Why that refuge is only take until awakening?
Oh, why is it taken until awakening? Oh, because after that you don't need refuge. No, you're no longer a Buddhist. No, it's because you have become the refuge objects. Yeah. So we say, I take refuge until I am enlightened. It doesn't mean you stop taking refuge at enlightenment. Okay. It means that you have become the refuge objects. Anything else? Okay, then we'll dedicate and continue next week.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the Venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Wholesome's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the west. Lord.